That had been changed, I understand, that wasn't, that 4.5 acres wasn't always there, that recently changed. So if we're now looking at changing it again, my question is, did we look at that very thoroughly? Did we have a public I'm only saying that if we had, if 4.5 acres was good, why are we so readily willing to change it to 3? I mean, was there a good reason why we changed it to 4.5? Now we're just dumping that and going to 3. That brings a concern to me that maybe we didn't look at it thoroughly. And so if we're going to go to 3, and that's the right, and maybe you've done your homework, and I'm sorry, I'm not pointing fingers there. Maybe you have a good handle on that. Maybe 3 acres is the right number. Then that's great, but it ought to stick for a while. It ought to be something that we stay with and we adopt because it makes sense. Number 2, the other thing that I would like to mention is going to the minimum lot standards on the PRD. There are, under item B, it says, be equally accessible. It says common space area shall, and B says be equally accessible and distributed for all residents of HOA community. I submit to you that, and it's my understanding that some of the, on this 1000 West, changing it to a PRD, that some of the amenities are going to be there, and then there's the apartment complex that is over by Smith's and by the liquor store that has the rest of the amenities. So the amenities aren't exclusive for that area. You've got amenities partly here on the 1000 West, the other part of them over on by Smith's and the liquor store. So they're not equally accessible and distributed for all residents of the HOA community. They're not. Somebody's going to have to go walking through the commercial truck parking and delivery area to make it over between the 2 areas. And that's dangerous. The other thing on that was, let's see, there was only, sorry. Generally create an open atmosphere, not include requirement. I'm sorry, there was another one there that that was important to me, but I can't find it. The last thing I want to, and for sake of time, the last thing I want to talk about is the actual ordinance that you're going to vote on tonight, that you're going to be discussing. It's the ordinance amending the Syracuse City zoning map for property located at 1000 West. There's 5 whereas. It's whereas, etc. Whereas. Well, the 5th whereas at the bottom of that page says this. Whereas the council finds that the zone change constitutes an appropriate and compatible use of the land and will not be contrary to the health, safety, and welfare of the community. I think it's already been Safety is the one thing that I wanted to underline there. It says it will not be contrary to the health and safety and welfare of the community. Well, the council brought up the fact that the ingress and egress of this development is a safety issue. The ingress and egress roads are too close together. There's a safety issue. Also, we have a problem with people, again, migrating from one amenity to the other. There's a big safety issue there. I'm afraid somebody's going to get backed over and killed. So I think there's a lot of reasons why this doesn't work, and I'd like to thank you for your serious consideration of these items and as we talk about them tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. Anyone else?
I know you guys are probably sick of seeing me and hearing from me. Rachel Page from 1950 South. First off, I brought some petition signatures that we've collected. I don't know if I can give those to you after I finish.
You'd give them give them to the recorder.
Okay, and I've got a copy for each of you. We collected over about 250 signatures, not including the ones that you guys have already received from the villas. And these are specifically regarding the proposed rezoning for the developments east of Smiths on Antelope and the rezoning for the PRD on 1000 that will be voted on tonight. These are signatures from citizens of Syracuse who care about the community. And I know one of the council members during a private meeting told me that they don't really care too much about petitions because it's just names from people who are maybe uninformed, but I do want to point out that these are not that. These people, we've spent a lot of time, we've been talking with people, we've gone in, we've sat in people's living rooms, and we've put a lot of work and effort into, getting the word out and just getting people's opinions. And so these signatures, I hope that they do mean something to you. And we just wanted to express our opposition to these developments that are upcoming. And then specifically for tonight, since I know it's being voted on, I just wanted to echo Steve's words that we hope that you would vote against rezoning to PRD on 1000 West. And one of the issues I'll just echo was a safety issue. 1000 West is so congested, and I've already talked to you about all of that, but since it's up for vote, we'll just refresh. It's so congested, and the area between the intersection of 1000 West and Antelope up to Bluff Ridge Drive, that area, we've received police reports and from both Syracuse and Clearfield, and that area has the highest number of accidents this past year, and I imagine in years before that. And there was even just another one right there on 1000 yesterday or the day before. So we're hoping that you vote against that just because of the density and the high traffic congestion. And that's all. Is there going to be a separate public hearing for the work session after, or will that all be addressed?
No.
Okay, so can we address that at the last public comments?
There'll be another public comment session.
Okay, then we can carry over for that. Okay, so that's all. Thank you. And then who do I hand these to?
Cassie.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Anyone else like to address the council? Hearing and seeing none, I'll close public comment. Again, as we mentioned, there will be another period, item number 16 at the end when we close. Before we adjourn from the business session, we will hold another session of public comment. We have some items of recognition we'd like to present tonight. The director of our North Davis Chamber of Commerce is here. I saw you, Mayor. Where did you slip? There you are. Paul, Terry, do you want to come up and make those presentations?
Thank you, Mayor, council members, for this opportunity. So, Syracuse City, along with the West Davis Chamber of Commerce. We recognize students within our area here who have accomplished a lot of things, who are great citizens, in my opinion here. So we have two from Syracuse Junior High. So if I could have Hallie Plain and Ty Richardson, if they would come forward. Come and stand right next to me over here. And it is my pleasure to award these Student of the Month for these two members here. This is an award that was set up by our mayor and also by the city manager, along with the economics department. And the idea is to recognize our youth for the good things that they do. So I'd like to talk about these two. Where's our smile here? All right, see, I mean, the guy's getting an award tonight, you know. So. All right, so Hallie. I had to ask her how to pronounce this, you know, but it's a beautiful name, and I know two other people with that name, Hallie, and I like it a lot. So, Hallie Plain is a model student and a talented musician. She takes AP honors courses and is involved in the National Academic League. Hallie is in multiple performing groups. She plays piano and violin, sings. You got time to study. Occasionally. I'll bet you she really gets good grades too. And is involved in advanced orchestra. Hallie is a member of the Syracuse Junior High School Hope Squad, which is awesome, and assists in school assemblies and lunchtime activities. She is smart, quiet, funny, and a great listener. And she is genuinely nice to everyone. So I can see why she's getting this award tonight, so that's awesome. So Ty Richardson is a student who is admired and respected by his peers and teachers alike. His ability to quickly learn and retain information combined with this work ethic make him a model student. Ty can work with anybody. He demonstrates a high level of empathy for others. He is a polite, nice, responsible student who leads by example. Ty is very involved in soccer. He has been a peer tutor at Syracuse Junior High School. Ty is in the Spanish dual language immersion program at Syracuse Junior High, and he is very respectful and a hard worker. And I can tell these two young students here that they are very, very involved in their school, and I thank them for doing that. So presentation here tonight is your picture will be here in City Hall for a whole month. So if you want to bribe any of your friends and so forth to come here and maybe even make a bet that your picture's over in City Hall, you know, you could actually make something up of this. Anyway, so Ty, there's something here from Biz. You like to go to Biz every once in a while? So that's one of the rewards, plus the fact that the picture will be here. And also, you so let's give him a great hand. So if I could get the council and the mayor to come down.
Council, let's go down.
And parents, if you'd like to get a picture with the council, and if we can sneak over. Maybe I like that side better. Just because that's in the background. All right. There are two you want to avoid.
Thank you, Terry. We appreciate you coming in every month and settling the score with the schools. We're so grateful for your... I'm going to take just a minute and defer to Councilman Savage because we want to recognize the members of the Syracuse High Robotics team for advancing to the state championship. Do you want to begin a little discussion here?
I would love to. I'm going to go down there if that's okay.
You can. You bet. Please do. I like the view from this side.
I don't know what that means. Anyway, so we as a city of Syracuse, city council, mayor, and the staff, we really want to make sure we are recognizing, because we hear a lot of things in the press about the youth, but a lot of times we're not recognizing the amazing things they're doing. And here in Syracuse, we've gone from raising sugar beets to, I know we've got onions, and as those farms are slowly moving away, we're raising a new crop of some really incredible kids. And so in the times of all of this bad social media and just all these things, we want to make sure that we as a city are recognizing some of the great kids. And so one thing I want to do is this too loud? I need to get even further away. We want to reach out to all of the schools in Syracuse that our kids attend, and just make sure they know that we would love to recognize any of the kids, be it in STEM or sports or anything, that are doing something incredible, and we want to recognize them. So we have one example of this today. As has been mentioned, the Syracuse Junior High Robotics team had 3 teams go to the state competition. And one of those teams will also be moving on to compete in the World Tournament in Kentucky in April. So I'm going to read them, their names, have them come up here, and then we want to make sure we get you guys up here, parents take pictures, and we want to make sure we recognize you guys. Now, so as I call your names, feel free to come up. Teams are on team 90049A, we have Jack Smith, Lincoln Lightfoot, Aaron Hansen, Lee Anderson, and Cole Poulter. On team 90049D, we have Timmy McMurray, Ford Nichols, Avram Lugo, Luke Godridge, Dominique Vinichenko, Parker Leishman. On team 40049H, we have Frankie Montgomery, Sierra Savage, Kiara Sherman, Jared Wright, and Kiara Senkel. Did I say that right, Kiara? All right. And what we'd love to do is just give you guys a hand, and we'll have the council come down, congratulate you, and we'll get a picture with the council as well. So first of all, a big round of applause for these guys. Here, council. Yeah, let's get behind. They're better looking than we are. Absolutely. Man, they're tall, aren't they? Everybody squish in. Pretend like you like each other. All right, got them all? All right, the team advancing the world, raise your hand. Nice work. Represent us well. And thank you all for coming. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Jordan. Aaron?
Good evening. What's up here? Mayor, Council, thank you for letting me have some time tonight to recognize one of the members of our fire department, Fire Marshal Golden Barrett. If you come up, please. He's been awarded the Utah Managing Fire Officer designation as outlined by the International Association of Fire Chiefs and adopted by the Utah Commission of Fire Officer Designation. He's combined hundreds of hours of training, education, and experience to meet these requirements. His hard work and commitment to this process shows his dedication not only to the Utah Fire Service, but to Syracuse City and our department. This is the second level of this designation, the Managing Fire Officer. Currently in the state, there's only 5 people that hold this. This was released last year and something that we've jumped on. Some of us have jumped on and worked towards. We have other members of our department that are working towards the Supervisory Fire Officer level, and there are 2 more levels that will be coming out within the next several years. So we'll be working towards those as well. But tonight, we're going to recognize Fire Marshal Golden Barrett. We do have a plaque that they sent through the commission to hand out to him tonight, so get the pictures that you guys want. And
Goldie, thank you for your representation in the city. You are an excellent, excellent fire marshal, and we are grateful for your service with us. Council, we're down to item 5. We have 3 items of common consent. Is there any one of those that you'd like to remove from that calendar? Hearing and seeing none, let me read them. Authorization of the administration to award the contract for the audit services for this year to Gilbert and Stewart Certified Public Accountants. We feel it's important that this goes out to bid every 4 or 5 years so that we're not with the same firm every year. Item B, consideration of final plat for the Criddle Farms North Phase 3, located at approximately 975 South and 4000 West. And item number C, proposed ordinance 2020-04, amending chapter 10.20 of the Syracuse City Code, eliminating the practice of closing the general plan. That text has been stricken from that current ordinance. Any discussion on any of those, council? If not, I take a motion.
Make a motion that we approve these 3 items by common consent.
I have a motion from Dave. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion on any one of those? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Cassie, would you report the consent calendar as approved? Let's look at minutes of the work session of January 28th, 2020, and our business meeting of February 11th, 2020. Any comments on those minutes?
No.
Hearing and seeing none, I'll take a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve those minutes.
I have a motion from Dave. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Corinne. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Cassie, would you record that? Unanimous. Proposed resolution R20-11, and I'd first like to have you, Dave, speak to this, if you would. Appointing Candace Dallin to the Syracuse City Arts Council. Would you mind speaking to that, what the need is there?
Yeah, our Arts Council has grown, and as we continue to do more reaching out into the community, we have had an applicant to the board, and we have a need with the board for more help. So as you know, our Arts Council has grown. We're doing 4 times as much as we did when I started with the council, and I'm just so proud of all of them for the hard work that they do. So they have asked that we add Candace Dallin to their board.
Thank you. Candace, are you here this evening?
I don't think she.
Here.
I was under the weather last week, and I asked the Mayor Pro Tem to interview her and sit with her. Jordan, could you give a report on that?
Love to. So sat down with Candace, and she is going to be a great asset to this board. She is, like most of us, as busy as all get out. There's always something to be done. But she just said she really felt a need to just make a difference in her community. She wanted to get to be able to participate on the board. She does choreography, so she'll be helping with the choreography this summer. Also, she has some experience in grant writing, so she's actually trying to help the board do even more than they already are. I think she will be a great asset to this Arts Council, so I wholeheartedly recommend her to the council.
And that's the position that she'll be serving in, is as the grant writing chair. We had that under two people at the time, grant writing and volunteerism, but we've done so much with volunteers lately that it's become an overwhelming job. So this splits those two jobs and adds a member.
Any other questions from the other members of the council?
Just that in the actual proposed language, there's a name that's wrong in there. So it just says Sheila Worley. So
that was our last appointee,
yeah,
who's over fundraising and sponsorships.
Yeah.
we'll just need to.
Cassie, could you take a look and amend that?
Yeah, it's just in the resolution document. We'll
Okay.
just correct that. If whoever makes the motion to adopt will
Okay.
reference that correction, please.
I will make the motion to appoint Candace Dallin to the Syracuse City Arts Council.
Do I have a
as Board
second?
member.
Second.
Seconded by, is that you, Seth?
Yeah.
Any further discussion, council? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? With the friendly amendment
Yeah.
to the resolution. All in agreement with that? Okay, thank you. Let's begin on item number 8. Larry, would you mind coming forward and explaining what your group is doing and why you're doing it? Who's involved? We've had a request for waiver of fees in this room to use it, and in order to accommodate state statute, we have to hold a public hearing to be able to do that.
Okay, yes, sir.
Brody, while he's doing that, do you want to bring us up to date about hows and whys of this?
Sure. In the staff memo that Paul put together, there's state statute that requires the city to study and consider and have a hearing if they are to waive any fees for any purpose. It does require that it is the fee waiver does not benefit any individual, but it's for the public good. Part of that, and I think Larry will talk about that a little bit, is that it go to a nonprofit organization. An alternative to that, and this is also outlined in the memo, is the city can be a co-sponsor of an event, and then then we can just choose to do, handle it however we want. In deciding this, whether you do the fee waiver or sponsorship, you can put whatever conditions you like, timelines, how many of these events you'd be willing to waive or sponsor, and those sorts of things. So that's kind of the summary of it.
Thank you, Brody. Okay, Larry.
Briefly, I'll bring you up to date on this medal. It's called the Utah Cold War Victory Medal. Utah is the 4th state.
Excuse me, Larry. If I could, you can just address to the council directly.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. The audience can read those. Utah is the 4th state to adopt rewarding military members of the state. Texas, Louisiana, Alaska, and now Utah. Utah brought this medal out in 2017. They did 100 medals at the Capitol building, and after that, the funding dried up, the publicity dried up. As you can understand, there's about 70,000 veterans in Utah that they would be eligible for this medal. So naturally, at $15 each for that medal, which is the bare bones cost, the state of Utah cannot afford any funding for this. So we started a couple organizations to try to get this medal out to the military members in the state of Utah. We've done 2 here in Syracuse. Each time we've done about 50 veterans. The majority of them are from Syracuse. Syracuse has a very good repertoire of veterans. They even published this book. This is the Syracuse World War I, World War II members. And this book is still available, I believe, today down at the museum, and I've seen them at the city offices. Philip Gailey is one of the members in this book. Last year, we had Blaine Gailey and his family come down from a retirement center that he lives down in Sandy. He was 95 years old. Blaine and his family came down, met some other family members that still live in the area, and we awarded him that medal. Blaine Gailey was 95 years old. He's a navigator on a B-17, still alive. He's still alive today. Later last year, we did a 100-year-old veteran named Eldon Sloan right here in City Hall. We're attempting to do this maybe twice a year and do 50 to 60 veterans each time without any cost to any veteran or their family. We also award the medal to family members that passed away at no cost. We're a grassroots organization, and we started an alliance. We fell out of the alliance. The ownership and I had a disagreement between a couple members, so we started over again. We are now called the Utah Cold War Veterans Foundation. We have applied for an EIN number. The medals are made overseas, and they're shipped to South Salt Lake, where we're able to purchase the medals at a cost of $15 each. We raise money by veterans paying this forward, veterans and their families. Some small business organizations have donated money, and we buy more medals. No one is being paid to do this. We're all volunteers, every one of us. Most of us are veterans in our own right. Farron and I both are veterans. The Cold War started directly in 1945 when they divided up Germany. That started the whole ball wax between the communist nations and our allies. That included North Korea, China, and Russia. As we know, in between those wars, after World War II, all the way up to Korean War, and after the Korean War, all the way up to Vietnam and above, this Cold War was still going on. And I can tell you from my experience, I've been involved in the Cold War, I've been involved in Vietnam, and Farron has too, that it was not a Cold War. If many of you are old enough to understand and remember when you had to duck underneath school desk, or have bomb drills, or missile drills in school, or go out to a bomb shelter, people in the Midlands of the States burying Connex boxes in the ground because of all the nuclear threats between us and Russia. And when they moved the missiles into Cuba in 1960, 61, 62, 63, that era of time, we came so close to a nuclear war. When I went in 1965, I had to learn chemical weapons because of the Cold War. Chemical weapons will kill you faster than anything else. This coronavirus is bad. It's not as bad as anthrax or ricin. I can tell you about some biological warfare that would turn your skin purple. Other weapons of mass destruction that we've had to endure and train on that the general public don't know about. The Cold War, the veterans in Alaska, NORAD, along the 38th parallel. These are the people we're reaching out to present this medal to, because the armed forces did not recognize any veteran for all their time in between those wars. Us Vietnam veterans have our own medals and so on and so on. When the Berlin Wall came down in 1991, they said, okay, Cold War's over. It's not over. North Korea fired 4 missiles just this past week. North Korea wants to take back South Korea in the worst way. Soviet Union wants Ukraine back and all the Soviet states it had before. China is flexing its muscle every day. The Cold War is not over. They just renamed it War on Terrorism maybe, or some other names, but I can tell you the Cold War is not over. This medal, I've seen veterans cry when they receive this medal, when we pin this medal on their chest. I've seen families shed tears because they learned a little bit about what their veteran went through. I've been in the gas suits. I've been in contamination units. I've had to detoxify chemical weapons and stuff. I've seen those horrors, and I know those horrors, and we live with it. The general public don't. Some may know what they read or hear. I'm sure Connie could tell you how bad anthrax or Castro beans, ricin can be. These viruses are bad. Don't get me wrong, I'm not putting them down. Do wash your hands. Do stay clean. We just want to continue to recognize the veterans. In 2018, we did this many. 2019, we did this many. 2020, we've already done this many. All this without any kind of funding. Our main problem is we're grassroots. We don't get any kind of funding. We're all volunteers. We have a lot of good families and veterans step up and say, pay this forward. I want to sponsor another veteran. This is how we do it. I have 56 medals right now that we're ready to do a ceremony here on March the 20th, starting at 5 o'clock. This will be our third ceremony here in Syracuse, the most we've had anywhere. The wife and I travel the state of Utah. I belong to the DAV. I belong to Vietnam Veterans America and all these different organizations. And we travel. We've done these ceremonies from Delta to Salina to Midvale to Willard to Brigham City to Tremont. A chaplain in Tremont, on that last page of that brochure I gave you, wrote us a thank you note. He's Lieutenant Colonel Chaplain Christensen up in Tremont. This money is not funded by any DAV organization, VFW, or American Legion, although they did receive the medals and they helped get it through the Congress of Utah. Chris Sturt was involved in it. Many good veterans put this on the line to design this medal and get it approved. One member of the VFW helped design that medal, Craig Thorne. One member of the American Legion helped design that medal. John Brewer helped design that medal, and he owns this company that at no charge gets these medals imported here so we could purchase those and get them out to the veterans. I'm not asking you for any money to do any of this. I'm just asking you for a venue, a building. The first time we did it over at the Senior Center. When we have the honor guard in, post the collars, and we actually pin the medal on the veterans, we did not have enough room. We used all 3 rooms over there, and we still didn't have enough room. So Mayor Galey, last year, says you can do it in City Hall. I didn't know about the cost involved to rent this building. I do now. I don't like it. The veterans are coming from Syracuse, the majority of them. The rest of them come from surrounding areas. We do not turn any veteran away. We take their name, phone number, time of service. We will honor any veteran during World War II all the way up to 1991. We have been to hospitals and pinned medals on veterans at hospitals. We went to their homes and done this. We do it anywhere we can, because it's not about the money or anything. It's about getting the medals out to the veteran. On the back of that card, when you read that and think about that. Our goal is to make it possible for every veteran in the state of Utah that we can reach out to receive that medal, his or her family. That's simply all we want. Again, we have a ceremony coming up March 20th, hopefully in this building, one way or the other. And we've already contacted about 55 veterans, and they've already agreed to come with their families and children and grandchildren. And we hope to make it a very prestigious ceremony, rightfully so. We wear our uniforms, most of us, that can still fit. We have an honor guard. We try to have a small choir. We have a bugler. It's quite well received. It's our passion. I don't know how much longer that Farron and I will be able to do this. Farron and us started here in Syracuse. We like to keep it going here in Syracuse. Keep recognizing our veterans. Farron, do you have anything? Does the audience have any questions?
Larry, let me open it to public hearing.
Okay.
Can I do that?
Let me say a couple more things. I noticed the fire marshal's still here. In my training, everything from hazmat training of thermite, magnesium, to destroy classified documents, to 2 years EOD, to training in chemical weapons, to training in munitions and missile badges. I wouldn't want a lot of people to know what went on out at Twilla with the chemical weapons of Terran, Saburn, VX, mustard gas, phosgene, you name it. There's so many ways of killing people that it's horrible. These veterans have seen it and trained on it, and we want to recognize them.
Thank you, Larry. What I'll do now is I'll open this to public hearing. If any of you would like to come forward, anytime that we deal with the city's financial position, we need to bring it before the public. And as was stated by Brody, there is a statute in state law. In order to waive the fee, we need to have this public hearing. So if any of you would like to address the council or address Larry, any questions that he has, we invite you to come forward, state your name, place of residence, and we'll give you up to 3 minutes to visit on that subject.
Josh Hughes at 1789 South Mills Lane here in Syracuse. I think if the city can help the foundation, I think that's fantastic. I don't claim to understand everything that goes in behind the scenes on that, so I won't comment too much about that. But I did want to pledge to Larry that I'll buy the next 100 medals that you guys give out. I'll give you my contact info before you leave.
Thank you, Josh. Anyone else?
Mayor, may
Yes.
I make a comment?
Yes.
Okay. Larry, first, I just want to tell you, first of all, my father was a pilot. He was in pilot's training during when Vietnam ended, and then he was a Cold War Special Forces pilot. And to this day, he still can't talk about his missions that he flew. So I appreciate the recognition that you're giving these men, because he did not receive any recognition for those. And then also, along with that, my husband spent 28 years in the Utah Air National Guard, and he's a lifelong member now, paid his membership for lifelong for VFW and American Legion. And I appreciate anyone who's willing to step up and support the veterans and what they and their families go through. So thank you very much for this, and I will support you.
Thank you, Corinne. Anyone else from the public?
My name's Rachel Davies, and I live on 108 St. Andrews Drive. I'm a fairly new face here. I just wanted to, my family is a lot of cops and a lot of military. We lost my uncle in the line of duty, and he was Officer Fred House, and the gentleman that was named after the police academy is named too. I have a brother that served in the military, and so I just want to voice my support to the council that if there's any efforts to honor the sacrifice that our military makes, then I as a citizen feel passionate about supporting that. And if there's any drawbacks to doing that, because like the previous gentleman said, that I would like to volunteer my own personal time and energy to reduce any difficulty that the city may have. I know there's real world issues, but this matters, and actions matter far more than words. So I want to say thank you, and you are not forgotten. And I will give you my personal contact information, because if you're grassroots and you're not sure how long that should last, then there are people that will pick up the torch and help you. Myself, I'm first and foremost on that list, so I would love to talk to you after to help you accomplish that. And if there's anything I can do to make March 20th a spectacular event, again, I can marshal my energy and friends and family to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Just a moment, Larry. Anybody else from the public? Hearing and seeing none, I'll close public comment. I'll recognize Larry.
Just wanted to say a few more words. These ceremonies are open to all the public. And at these ceremonies, we also use it as a teaching moment. This ceremony coming up in March, the Honor Guard will teach how to fold a flag properly and what each fold means as they fold that flag. They will explain what each cartridge shell means when they fire the rifles. We also teach that when we have these ceremonies, so the children or grandchildren in the audience and the general public knows what that means. And all these ceremonies, no matter where we do them at, are open to the public. And we always need help. I would love to have Eagle Scouts, Boy Scouts help with people that has walkers or wheelchairs that may need to come down up front. Farron's graciously, his family's donated water. We always need bottled water or something for the elderly and stuff. We could always use scouts passing out water or something like that. We want to be able to have a bugler to play reveille, to play retreat, and to play taps. And right now I need a bugler. We're trying to get hold of Paul Cap, who I've had in the past, but if anybody knows of a bugler,
I do.
I would greatly welcome them, him or her, it doesn't matter. And also, at the present time, I need some lady volunteers that have worn the uniform to help pin the medals on lady veterans and their families, because as men, we do not want to do that at the present.
Does it matter what branch?
No, it does not matter what branch, but we always would love to have a military veteran lady pin the medal on our lady veterans or their families.
Larry, thank you for everything that you've done. And I'm going to move us on. Seth, would you lead us in a discussion? It looks to me like we've got three options.
Sure.
One to do nothing, one to waive, maybe one to sponsor.
Yeah. First and foremost, thank you. Thank you for your service and for this effort here. I can echo everybody else's comments. I lost my grandfather in the Vietnam War, and I never got to meet him. And my dad served honorably in the Vietnam War, and so this means a lot to me. I can definitely say the option for me is off the table is not supporting this effort. How we get to it is a discussion we need to have. But we had received some correspondence in regards to that this was I was kind of unsure whether this was a nonprofit or not.
You want to speak to that?
Yes, we've applied for an EIN number. Under the old alliance, we did have an EIN number. We broke up that alliance because we didn't like the direction it was going. The owner, John Brewer, and myself. I was the co-chairman at the time. He has refiled for a EIN number, and his name and phone number is on that one pamphlet I showed you. I'm sure that Brody could call them and stay in touch with his attorney and find out when they're getting that, because we had a lady donate $2,500, and we're still waiting on that EIN number. So she's been.
Yeah, no problem there. I just don't know if that then dictates kind of how our solution is formulated by code.
Yeah, under the state code, you're only allowed to waive these fees under this section for nonprofits. So where they're not nonprofits yet, you could still choose to sponsor it as a city. That's your other option.
So you're saying legally it's not an option for us to waive yet?
Either we could wait and waive it after they get that status, or the city could choose to support it directly.
It seems as if that were to fall through, though, or something went wrong with the EIN process and all that, then to me it would make sense to then just go the second route and sponsor the event.
All right.
Well, this is a time I get to name drop a little bit. Chris Stewart is my uncle, and Ted Stewart, that the certificate was sampled by, is my other uncle. And I have a long line of military veterans, and every night pray for first responders and our soldiers. If ever there's anything that I feel confident in supporting, it's something that benefits or acknowledges the incredible sacrifice of these people who consistently are noble at heart and put their lives on the line continually. So I agree with Seth that it seems like the best thing to do would be to sponsor it so that there's no question of legality or waiting, especially when you have a March event coming in just a week or two. So I agree with Seth that a sponsorship seems like the best course of action.
All right, Jordan?
I'm a huge fan of all of the freedoms and benefits that we have because there are people out there willing to stand up and fight for us. And just echo, I have two grandfathers that are veterans of World War II. This is phenomenal that you're trying to recognize these guys. I'm a little disappointed that in both the higher governments that they are not giving these guys recognize they probably deserve. And so if I can make some small part of kind of filling that gap, I'm happy to. So I will go either route as well. If we cannot simply waive the fees due to the nonprofit, I would look at a sponsorship as well.
David?
This is a difficult situation that I see because we have legalities, one of which is you're not a nonprofit, so legally we can't waive that fee. So that's not an option at this time. But I feel like there's a little bit of misinformation here. I am as pro-veteran as there can be. My father is a member of the Governor's Board on Veterans Affairs. He has been the state commander for both the Military Order of the Purple Heart and the DAV, and a national commander. And I am absolutely supportive of all veteran issues. But you said yourself there was a conflict between you and the last organization, and I'm concerned about ever being on one side or the other between different veteran groups. There are nationally recognized veterans organizations that are recognized by the branches of the military. And I think that we need to understand that this is not a military award as far as recognized by the military. So I don't want to be caught between veterans groups in any way. The state did not take this on. And there are other causes out there that are in desperate need. So I don't think we should be a sponsor because I don't think that this is recognized by the military itself. That's what I understand is the conflict. So I think that we should recognize these. The military does have a Cold War medal that they issue under their process, and this medal cannot be worn on the uniform of the United States officer. It's not authorized.
Okay, so you're saying either nonprofit route or nothing?
Nonprofit is the way that it should be, but they're not a nonprofit. We've recently had discussions in this chamber about what we should do for other organizations. As you all know, I advocated that we support the Boy Scouts of America, but we decided not to because that would set a precedent that we would have to allow all nonprofits a fee waiver, and that was considered a problem. So we didn't agree to waive fees for nonprofits. We talked about setting a policy that we have yet to determine of what that would qualify for a nonprofit fee waiver. If we're going to do this, we should be consistent with ourselves and say we're following our own rules. I am absolutely for every veteran's opportunity and recognition, and I regularly attend veteran issues I'm not anti-veteran in any way, shape, or form, but there's been some misrepresentation. This has not been approved by the authorities of the state.
Corinne?
I personally think that a sponsorship, I need a little more details of what that exactly means, but I think a sponsorship, because this is a new situation, I think is totally appropriate. The National Guard symbol is a Minuteman, and that Minuteman stands for the citizens who are willing to stand up and for the freedoms and fight. And in this case, I think that's the citizens that you are who are willing to step in when the government wasn't able to. And I think that that should be recognized. And I'm all for it.
Council, I'd entertain a motion.
I move that, right, let's get it right. We consider a sponsorship of the Utah Cold War Veterans Foundation and waive their fees in accordance with nonprofit. Even if it's if it doesn't get the nonprofit status, we still consider or sponsor them. Not consider, that we sponsor them.
Right.
I don't know what to do with that motion.
I know that. Let me try that again. Let's try that again. I propose and make a motion that we sponsor the Utah Cold War Veterans Foundation. And let me think how to say this. And that this entails waiving fees for using the council chambers for their events.
Paul, can we use the word waive and?
Yeah, I wouldn't say you should sponsor the foundation. I think you can sponsor an event and have the venue made available for that event. But I wouldn't recommend sponsoring a foundation as a city.
Okay, so I move that we sponsor the Utah Cold War Veterans Foundation event and that we waive fees in accordance.
Just say make the council chambers available.
Make the chamber councils available.
Yeah.
It would have helped if you just write it out for me and I'll just repeat it.
I don't know how to vote on a motion like that.
Do I have a second?
I will second that.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I just wanted to say one more thing, that awards given by the American Legion and VFW are also not worn on a military uniform, just FYI.
Mayor, could I ask a question? So one thing you may want to consider, I don't know if this is the only one this year, but if there's going to be more than one this year, then you may want to clarify that, because you can either have them come back again. I'm just trying to speak in the interest of time. If you want to sponsor more than one for the year, we can do that tonight. If you only want to do one for the year, we can do that tonight and have them come back again later.
Maybe we can
Either way.
Sponsor it for the year 2020.
You can make that in your motion.
All right. Once again,
Sponsor events held in 20.
sponsor events held in the year 2020. I move, so sorry, that we, as Syracuse City, sponsor events in the year 2020 by the Utah Code War Veterans Foundation.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
I have a second from Corinne. Any further discussion from council? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Was that unanimous?
Abstain.
Yeah.
Okay, Councilman Mon abstains. Now, Larry, let me just give you some direction, and then we're going to move on, if that's okay with you. There are many nonprofit organizations. The chamber that was here earlier is a 501c6. It is a league, and it pays no taxes. It is a league of, this could be a league of veterans, and you just have to guarantee that your income over a year is not over $50,000 a year, and you can become a nonprofit. It is not a qualifying 501c3 where others can take their proceeds that they donate to it. But there are a number of ways you can organize yourself as a nonprofit organization under tax code. So let me call that discussion now, and let me give the direction. Just for a point of clarification, up to 2 this year? 2 this year?
That was not in the motion.
Was
but
not in the motion.
You may want to clarify if that's a concern.
I want to know.
I'm going to be in trouble with the agenda minutes for this next one. I will amend my initial motion to should I just say it again?
We've already voted.
Oh, then
Yeah.
what do we need?
We don't need anything.
Left it wide open.
We left it open.
Okay.
It's okay.
All right.
Up to 2, though. We can't have this open every night.
Well, then I would encourage you to go on and look at that nonprofit status for your title. Okay. Thank you, Larry. Thank you for your time. Yes.
One more minute, please.
Yes.
We always collect names. So here tonight, I've heard from quite a few. We live in Syracuse, where I live. My phone number's on that tablet. Call us, leave us a name and number of contact. And we do record all the veterans' names. And when we get enough medals, we notify them. When we get a venue, we have it. And Syracuse has been the best so far, I have to say. We travel a lot, we go wherever we can. We are very thankful to have a venue where we can depend on and plan on. So if it's your grandfather, your father, whatever, if you want to receive that medal, you let us know. Let us know who will receive that medal, and we will have a ceremony for you. One more thing I want to clarify, though. This is in the Capitol Rotunda, and that is by every veterans organization in this state. DAV, the VFW, the American Legion, is in this rotunda. As far as wearing the medal on your uniform, if you are retired, I would say wear the medal on your uniform on the other side. If you're active duty, I agree, no. But if you're retired, you want to wear that medal of recognition, I say wear it. Okay? I just wanted to show this down here and I'll get out of here. That is the Capitol building. That is every organization that is there, and that is the percent. Johnny is not recognized by.
Thank you.
Anybody knows your dad is a great thing.
Thank you.
I
Part of it, but I won't say that. Every veteran of the organization, state commander, etc., receives a medal down at Capitol building. The rest of the veterans didn't know about this ceremony, so they got 100 medals. State commanders, vice commanders received the medal. The rest of them didn't. This is why I got involved. I want to know how and why. So So don't tell me this medal is not recognized.
Okay.
I get a little bit perturbed by that, I'm sorry.
I have a trumpet player / bugler for you, a name if you'd like.
Sherry, did you hear that? She has a trumpet player.
I have a trumpet player /
Bugle.
bugler. He's played for a Memorial Day ceremony, if you'd like his name and number.
Thank you for your time, I appreciate you putting up with this.
Larry, if you check with Corinne, she has a contact with a bugler. for
Yes,
you.
sir.
A bugler. No, why don't we just do this? If
Give you a piece of paper, okay?
We need to get moving.
Garrett, do you want to take the stand? Larry, we're going to move on, and we've got an agenda of items we've got to need to cover this evening. Garrett, would you bring us up to date on this?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, this is basically, we've done this a few times in the last couple years. It's donating the unclaimed bicycles from the police department's found property area to the Children's Justice Center. They repair them, auction them off, and then the proceeds go to support that Children's Justice Center, which I know several of you that have been through the Citizens Academy or will be going through it now understand the value of that organization to our community. So,
okay. Do you want to lead us off on this one?
Yes.
You did such a great job before.
Is that me? Yes.
You're up.
And you want me to make a motion as soon as we're done talking? Probably not.
Do you have any?
This is great. It's something, really?
You can leave.
Okay, then I move that no, I really shouldn't, but I'll try. Okay. I move.
Are we going to have discussion?
Well, they were just saying I can lead out with a motion, so I'm going to. I propose that we do R20-10, authorizing Syracuse City Police Department to apply property in the police department's possession to public interest use, designating a specific public interest use for the property, meaning that it is the Justice Department. Oh, let me see, Children's Justice Center. So I move that we take all of the bicycles, donate them to the Children's Justice Center.
And to be clear, it's more than just bicycles.
Scooters, and okay, let's go with property. You see why I shouldn't be making any motions?
Yeah, you're not allowed to.
Jordan, go ahead. Why don't
Do I
you
have a
move that?
second?
I'll second that.
All right. Let's have some discussion.
The only thing I say every year is I wish that we would publish this in our own magazine to help them raise even more money so that our citizens could participate in this. Typically, this has been advertised in places where our citizens just don't notice. So every year I ask for that same thing, that we just somehow publicize this amongst our own community.
See, I remembered you from last year because I asked Heath about that this morning, and he said he had talked with the guy to try and get the date or the flyer. They said they hadn't developed the flyer yet. So if we can catch the May one, because he did say it was in like mid-May, if we can catch the May magazine, then we should be able to do that.
That would be great.
By April 15th.
Again, I just want to support it as good as we can. Other than just giving property that's surplus, I want to let our people know there's a way that they can contribute.
All right.
I'd like to add one more thing to that. So having gone through and toured the center, I mean, anything we can do to support this center is helping people on the worst day of their lives oftentimes. And anything we can do to support this, I am all for it. So thank you, Chief, for keeping these guys in mind. And if anyone out there is looking for help, the Children's Justice Center, I mean, I hope you never have to go there, but if you do, please know that it's there and it's a resource.
Any further discussion, Council? This is just direction.
Full support, thank you.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, I see that appears to be unanimous. Okay. Steve, budget opening?
I'll be brief since we've discussed this in previous meetings. This budget opening is to address a few changes to our budget. Some of the bigger ticket items include shoreline development agreement improvements,
$520,000. The Fields Development Agreement Improvement of $469,000. Pickleball courts in Founders Park, $180,000. And then there's also some various changes throughout that are in your packet. If you'd like, I could go through those. Otherwise, I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor.
All right. Do you want to lead us out, Corinne?
Okay. Looks like most of these are really straightforward, and I don't really have any questions at this time.
Yeah.
Does anybody else? I mean,
We've talked about this ad
This is
nauseum.
straightforward.
Let's just do it.
All right.
We just need the motion.
All right.
Do you want to ask me to make a motion?
No.
We have to-
No.
No, we have to have a public hearing. It's money.
I'll do that.
We have to have the mayor has to
Oh,
call a
yes,
public hearing.
first.
I now declare that we're in public hearing to discuss a financial budget opening for the city. If any of you would like to address the council on this issue, we'd invite you to come forward, state your name and place of residence. We'll give you 3 minutes. Hearing and seeing none, I'll close public hearing. Okay, back to you, Councilman Bull.
I make the motion to amend the public budget, or the city budget.
Motion from Dave,
Second?
second from Jordan. Any further discussion, council?
If it needs to be as outlined in the public.
I was gonna, wondering about that clarification.
Yeah. Amend the motion to as outlined in the packet.
All right. All in
I accept the change.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Item number 11, Robert.
Council, every year we are required by state law to submit a report to the State Department of Water Quality, Department of Environmental Quality, Division of Water Quality. This is called the Utah Sanitary Sewer Management Program. It's due April 15th. We've completed the report and included the whole thing in your packet. It's pretty extensive, but we are just asking you to consider passing a resolution so that we can complete the report and submit it.
Right. Dave, do you want to lead this one?
We have gone over this multiple times in the past, and the work you do is great. It's well outlined. It's well planned. I'm okay to make a motion to affirm that we move forward.
Okay, I'll entertain that motion. Do I have a second? Second. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion, council?
Just wanted to say, glad that you can keep us in clean water and we don't have to buy bottled water for Corona.
Yeah.
All right.
All in favor, council?
Aye.
Any opposed? Cassie, would you record that as unanimous? Robert, award of a contract.
Yes, the city has bid a project for the 2020 road improvement project. This includes several roads in the city that will get some work done, particularly 2000 West right here by City Hall between Antelope and the roundabout at 2700. That will have a new secondary main upsize. Right now there's currently a half-mile worth of 4-inch main and a half-mile worth of 8-inch main. It's pretty much a choke point in our system. So upgrading that, eliminating the 8-inch and the 4-inch main and put in a 12-inch main for secondary water. And then redoing the roadway on top of it. All the other utilities in the road are in good shape. So, and then there's some repaving on, or excuse me, like just surface treatment overlay type work. Heritage Parkway, Banbury Drive, and then 1000 West. We want to do a mill and overlay. This would be north of Antelope. About 2/3 of that road's in Clearfield City, so we're proposing, well, we've already spoken with Clearfield City. They are, the staff is in agreement and has the ability to share the costs with it. They do have to send that to their council for approval too. However, as far as reimbursing, so we took on managing that part, or we included it in this project in order to capitalize on the lower costs because there's more quantity, and are asking Clearfield City to reimburse us their portion of 1000 West, which is about 2/3 of that cost. So which would, according to the bid that we received, it would be in the amount of about $300,000. So so we would need to consider approving an agreement with Clearfield City, and then award this contract contingent on Clearfield City approving the contract. We did separate that out in a Schedule A. If for some reason that doesn't happen with them, then we can still move forward with the project without the Schedule A, if that happens. Does that make sense? Okay. Then we also have a chip seal for a few roads. 1000 West, this would be by Warren's, so it's just that newer section of pavement. And then 700 South by the high school from 2000 West to the Clearfield City border. And then 3000 West between 193 and 700 South. So that's about half mile worth of road on that section. The bids, we got 4 bids that we've included in the packet. Low bidder is Staker Parsons. Total project cost is $2.5 million combined. Some of that is surface treatment, and it was about $385,000 worth of that is surface treatment, which we are proposing or asking you if it would be okay with you if we kind of commit next year's surface treatment money, because we have the overlap from the June to July anyway. Chip seals you don't typically do in July when it's real hot. So that part of it, roughly $400,000, would be kind of pre-committing next year's, which is something we would just put in the budget come July anyway. Okay. Yeah, I think I covered everything on that. Any questions?
Let's start with you, Jordan.
No, I'm grateful that we're going to be, I believe the one we're sharing with Clearfield is the 1000. And that road is terrible. So I am glad to see that we're getting that one updated. One thing I was curious about, is there anything we can do with that 1000 Antelope subdivision to kind of help clear that out a little bit? Because I know that's one of the big complaints. Just as they're doing that, is we're not redoing the curbing or anything, right? This is just a update, cleaning up the pavement and.
Right.
Okay. All right, but still, it's good. I think it's good bids. They're all pretty close. I think this is a good thing to do.
Lisa, can you have your input?
Nothing to add.
All
Great
right.
job.
Seth?
Yeah, nothing additional.
All right. Corinne?
Just where you get your bids usually out in February and receive the results in March, I think it's totally reasonable to commit some of our fiscal 21, which starts in July. I think that's not a problem. Just wanted to put that out there.
We started doing this a couple of years ago, and I am absolutely for the savings with economy of scale and trying to work 2 budgets in so that we can get more done with less dollars.
Yep.
We have to do that. It's financial. It's the best for the city. It gets the most bang for the buck. So I'm grateful we're continuing to do that.
All right. Can I have a motion?
Yep, I'll go ahead and make a motion.
No, wait, don't you want me to? Again?
You are banned.
We're almost out of time.
Okay, I propose we award the contract for the 2020 and some 2021 road improvement projects, and authorize execution of an interlocal agreement with Clearfield City for cost sharing, assuming their council approves it, and the company is Staker Parson.
All right.
So I think I got it all.
Have a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. Any further discussion, council? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Cassie, would you record that as unanimous? Noah? Do you need a Kleenex, Noah?
I'm good.
Okay, this next item is one that we've had a lot of discussion on over the last several months. This is the proposed amendment to 10-75050 concerning PRD. So, and there were some comments in the public hearing about our analysis, and just for the record, we did do a lot of analysis. We did a lot of mapping. I think that's why the number is at the 3, because there was a natural divide between the bulk of the properties at that number 3. So there are still quite a few properties that are less than 3 acres that wouldn't be able to utilize this zone, but we decided that that's okay for the time being. So the amendment is simple. It says 4.5 and we're changing it to 3. There was also one other thing. I know that we have not discussed this, but Corinne brought it to my attention earlier today, and so I figure might as well bring it up. Hopefully it doesn't send us back to the work session, but if that's what needs to be done, that's okay. So my apologies ahead of time. She was reading through and noticed in the section where it talks about the different allowed densities. So there's 6, 9, and 12. So it's on page 216. So it's just 1075-040A density. So A2 for 9 units per acre, it says shall have frontage and access upon an arterial road. Then there's a little asterisk that refers to what we mean by arterial road, and it says road classifications are identified in the adopted transportation master plan's existing street network. And this may have been a typo when we originally did this, but it should say proposed street network rather than existing, because particularly the one that we've been thinking about in this amendment, the next item on the agenda, if it said existing street network 1000 West is a collector road, not an arterial road. So therefore, that PRD, the proposed PRD, the next agenda item, would only be able to have 6 units per acre, which currently it's at 9, so that would be a big issue for that application. So I knew that was, sorry to drop that bombshell right now. I know we haven't talked about that, but that would be, the recommendation is to change that word from existing street network to proposed street network. So there, in the transportation master plan, there's 2 maps. There's one that says current transportation plan network, and then there's the proposed. So the proposed would change the 1000 West to the arterial, and that would therefore qualify it for 9 units per acre.
Can you define the difference between an arterial and a collector, just so I make sure I understand?
Maybe Robert can help me. The arterial and collector is, we have engineering standards that's published on our website. I believe the arterial is wider than the collector. Can you help me out, Robert? Sorry. Put you on the spot. I could probably find it here real quick, but he might know off the top of his head.
Yeah, it is based on width, but more important than that, it's based on traffic volumes. So I don't have it handy in front of me to know what the traffic volumes are proposed in our master plan, but you kind of sprung this. But it is based on traffic volumes. So.
Arterial versus collector?
Arterials are wider. So, for instance, as an example, a good example is Antelope Drive is an arterial. It is wider. It's a 5-lane road with bike lanes, and I couldn't tell you right off the bat what the actual right-of-way width is. I believe it's somewhere around 110 feet, but it's based on travel lanes for travel volumes.
So what would an example of a collector road be? Do you know?
Any road
That's
between the
unfair.
Arterial
Based
and
on what I've seen from Wasatch Front Regional Council and from UDOT, they're typically a 3-lane road that
turn lane in the middle.
is in a 66-foot wide right-of-way, and that's...
So would 1,000 be, because as you go a little further south, 1,000 is only a 2-lane. So,
Right. It is 2-lane. The curbs are set that it could potentially be a 3-lane, and in our master plan, it could be striped as a 3-lane, but that would be the max.
So,
I've got it pulled up if it's helpful, if you want me to. Not like we have to go through our whole transportation master plan right now, but the difference between arterial, so the street designations that we have in our typical street dimensions are found in our engineering standards. So we have our standard cross-section is 60 feet, the local, and our collector is 66 feet, which is what 1,000 is currently. The minor arterial is 84 feet, so it would mean someday it would be widened, but we don't necessarily have to plan for that widening right now. We're just understanding that in general, the science behind the location of the densities in the PRD, at least if I remember right, the rationale is that the busier the road, the higher the density that could handle. And
Well,
so-
I don't think it's the busier the road, it's the capacity of the road.
Yes.
Right, that's what I meant, thank you.
And
Yeah,
we're-
so the bigger the road, the busier the road, the more density. So anyway,
Can I get us away from the discussion of a particular PRD and back on the idea of going back to a 3-acre
Yes, sir.
minimum?
I actually had something on page 219. There's an issue with, in this ordinance, or this, in this zone that we have described, we have on there that, let me find it, sorry. Basically, we say that if you have a 1-story next to a 2-story, if you have 1-stories next to each other, they only have to have 5-foot side yards. But if you have a 2-story, it has to have 16 feet, which means it has to have 8 feet on its side. But if it's right next to a 1-story, then you've just given the responsibility of that 18 feet over to who? The 2-story? So you just encroached on their plot and, well, encroached on the size of their actual building.
Can you tell me where you're reading from,
Yeah.
please? We can.
I'm reading from my notes, and I don't know where. Let me find it. It's on page 219, so let me see. Find something about side yards.
It's the very top of that page.
Thank
It's called,
you.
it's subsection F.
There we
side
go,
yards.
F. A minimum of 10 feet between primary structures and 5 feet from the property line. If the height of the structure exceeds 2 stories, then the minimum side yard shall then be 16 feet between the primary structures and 8 feet from the property line. So does that mean that whoever builds the higher home has to now compensate and turn it from 10 to 18 feet, or 16, I'm sorry? I think we just placed a burden on the house, on the taller house, and we gave them a greater amount of side yard to compensate for, and that encroaches on their building size.
the standard rear yards in a single family home are usually like 30 feet anyway, so so I don't necessarily see how that would transfer onto the neighbor. I don't know.
But it's a
There's-
PRD,
And
so we're,
this,
Between the buildings of the same project, yeah, they would have to have.
Paul, would you speak to this?
yeah, and this came up recently. We looked at interpreting this, and it's only if the height of the structures exceeds 2 stories. So if you're looking at a 3-story home, then they're asking for that 16 feet between the structures.
Okay.
So in that case, if they're really building a really, really high home, they're going to require
So for-
more
oh,
side yard.
okay.
But 2-story is the same, is the 10 feet.
As I remember
Okay.
when we did this, the onus is on the new structure, not the past structure.
But
They're not gonna move
this,
the house.
I'm just considering that this would be in the PRD, if everything's developed at once and you have a 1-story next to a 2-story, then you suddenly give an excess of 6 more feet that needs to be in there, and that has to go to the higher structure. That just decreased the size of their home. But it makes sense if it exceeds 2, then they're going up.
Yeah.
Okay, so I
They're
don't.
still getting their their square
I,
footage.
I think if it had only been 2, we would have needed to revisit this, because that decreases the square footage of the home.
With that information, are you good with it as is?
Yes. If it exceeds, then I'm good with it.
So can I bring us back to the 3 acres?
Yes.
Absolutely.
And then we can maybe have some discussion when we move on to the next one. Is anybody prepared for a motion?
No. I think that, I mean, as far as the road size goes and proposed versus existing, I think that we can only allow according to the existing. So as I recall, that was intentional, because we can say, and this came up, we could say that there is a potential that a road will become an arterial down the road, but if we build for it, we're forcing it. So we are building for what exists today. And then we don't want to put the burden on the city to now widen the road to meet the standard of what we approved in homes.
But we're talking about this is across the entire city, Dave.
That is across the city, across every development.
I actually agree with that. I think we have to build for what the road can currently do.
Yeah.
If you build for what it could possibly do, you're going to create a mess.
I do have to say, though, with that situation we're talking about 9 units in general, right? Or a very small.
I don't know how big the development will be.
Yeah.
No, well, I'm just saying, like in a 3-acre area.
We're not talking about a development. We're talking about
Right.
what do we do?
I'm
if
talking
we
about in a
change
3-acre site.
If we change.
But what if it's a 15-acre site?
This applies to every PRD that's applied for. If we try to propose what may be down the road, then we are dramatically changing things on speculation. We don't want to take on the responsibility of having to fix roads because of what potential could be built for.
I agree.
And if I could chime in, I do remember that discussion in the work session, and there was a discussion of whether it should be existing or proposed, and the council came down on the side of existing just because the development happens faster than the roads. So that's, I recall that conversation. We could always look at the minutes, but I do remember that was how the council came down.
That's not what the requested change is, so I really don't think we should be dealing with it anyway.
Yeah, I'm not trying to push anything on you. I just knew that was something that was brought up, and that poses an issue with the next item on the agenda. So if what we are wanting as a city is to allow townhomes within this zone, as it's written, there are some properties that we've envisioned to have townhomes on it that will not be able to use this zone. So that creates a regulatory problem where our ordinance doesn't allow sufficient density to do the housing that we're envisioning in certain areas.
Right, so I think that there's an error in our wording of the road.
So if we
all I'm
don't
saying.
want to touch the existing street network, we should possibly look at adding some other language to the 9 units per acre to encapsulate the properties that we are envisioning. If that makes sense.
I think we're trying to change the zone to meet an application, and we're being asked in this agenda item, we are being asked whether we should lower the overall rate or density or zone size from 4.5 to 3.
That is the application, but as a legislative body, you can consider the amendments, and if, like I said, I'm not trying to push you to do one thing or the other, so if you need more time to discuss it on a work session, that's fine, or if it's too much to consider, that would be, I guess, the easy fix to change it to say future street network, but the alternative would be to relook at those density categories because they are very restrictive.
I thought we actually increased them.
We did increase them. We allowed for a lot more, and we did it on.
It didn't really.
Yeah, if I remember right, we were thinking 6 kind of away from the city center, 9 along some of the busier roads a little bit closer, and 12 like right in the town center. And I'm not trying to question that logic at all. I think there's a lot of wisdom in that.
Mayor.
So it's just how it's applied.
Brody.
And I don't know if this helps the conversation at all, but when the council looks at that requirement for, 6, 9, and 12. There's more than one criteria, so there's the way it reads is you have to meet at least one of those criteria. So, I mean, in looking at it, you don't want to, I mean, we need to focus on the road, and that's important that it can handle the traffic. There's also other criteria.
I see what you're saying. This is one, it says it straight out there.
I apologize.
Number 2.
This is what happens when there's a lot of discussion, like right before a meeting, and
it was a simple question.
and I do apologize for dragging this through the mud. So the language says 9 units per acre are allowed only when one of the following is met. So it meets it. And so I'm just going to eat a lot of crow right now and just say that that there is no issue with the following agenda item. And as far as needing to address that, that's up to you if you want to adjust that for future street network, but it doesn't pose a risk for the next agenda item. We can resume normalcy. Just ignore the last 10 minutes of your life. I apologize. And
Council, can I bring us
move
back
forward?
Bring us back to the 3 acre.
Yes.
That was the question we were calling.
Yeah, I think we've done our due diligence. We've had a reasonably thorough investigation into the possible lots in our community that would meet this description if we were to reduce the lot size down to 3 acres. And I feel comfortable with that. I'm on the record saying that I would feel comfortable using our legislative powers to review any project that came before us, but I've only been here a few months, so I don't know how many that would end up looking like other than how many Noah has presented to us. And so for that reason,
Okay.
I'm comfortable.
Let me come down the bench then, Lisa.
We have done due diligence. We discussed how many properties were 3 and under and how many were above that. And I feel comfortable as well in saying that 3 acres is kind of a general cutoff line for having a lot of people come before us. But also I wouldn't have had a problem discussing each one individually on its merits. We did come to the 4.5 last year in a compromise, and sometimes that can seem arbitrary, but it wasn't. It was a compromise. So, and remember, this is in general. This isn't a specific plan that's been proposed. This is just a general idea of what we'd like for this PRD.
Okay. Jordan?
Yeah, the original proposal was to remove the minimum entirely, and I've been on the record that I am not okay with that. This 3 acre, I think, is the bare minimum that this needs to be. There is no guarantee I'm going to approve many of these 3 acres, just depending on where they are and how the traffic situation plays out. The big thing I'm looking for is it a good use of the property, and does it fit in the area? And so with this, I'm okay with the 3 acres, but I like the 4.5 better.
All right.
My concern is that over my years of experience here, what happens is if you don't give enough guidance to what is required to make a good zone or one that will be approved, then people come forward and say, hey, I met your minimums, you owe me a zone, or why are you using your legislative power to say this isn't a good fit? So in theory, we're doing everyone a favor by saying these are the characteristics of what gets approved. So my understanding of those characteristics and why we talked about this just 6 months ago is that if there's not reasonable size, we never come up with a safe traffic plan. And I think that every proposal that I've seen on 3 acres, there's no legitimate secondary access, and that's a safety issue. I don't ever want our citizens trapped because there's only one access to their property. Our first responders would have a nightmare with that if the accident were cutting off that one access. So as far as I'm concerned, that we are doing people a favor by leaving it at 4.5, because I don't think that we're going to see the solution without it.
Corinne?
I'm comfortable with moving it to 3 because we have definitely investigated this a lot and put on several different situations and what would qualify. So there you go.
I'd entertain a motion, council. Let's move off and move it.
Is this the right one?
Do you have a motion? Anybody?
Oh, it disappeared. No. Mayor, I make a motion that we accept proposed ordinance 2020-05 amending Syracuse City Code Section 1075-050 pertaining to minimum acreage permitted to develop a PRD project.
Right. Which basically says 3 acres.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
with 3 acres.
You have a second? Second by Seth. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
I'll go with an aye. Quiet aye.
He's given us an aye. Okay, so we're 4.
I'll be the 4th.
4 to 1. All right. Okay, let's move to item 14.
Okay. Again, I apologize. I think I want to hide under this desk. This next item is an application to rezone from A1 to PRD on coincidentally 3.081 acres. This is the proposed development is 2-story townhomes. There'd be about 28 units. That comes out to be about 9 units per acre. There were some, the staff has looked at this as part of the approval process for PRD requires that they provide some elevations and plan drawings up front. We have looked at the access points and the driveways. Our off-street parking requires that the driveways be located at least 100 feet apart from each other, which they are, and there are 2 driveway entrances. It also requires that the driveways be no closer than 40 feet from any intersection of 2 roads, which it is also further than 40 feet away. The general plan identifies this area as medium density residential, which would allow a PRD zone as being contemplated within the general plan. And like we were reading in the ordinance, to qualify for 9 units per acre, there are 2 things that you can do to meet. And you have to just meet one of them. One of them is be an arterial, which it does not meet, but the other one is to be adjacent to an existing commercial, which it does meet because it's adjacent to Smith's. There are elevations in the packet architecturally. You can see they have front porches, they have pitched roofs.
Mayor, really quick. There were a couple of pages that didn't show up in the packet, like the vicinity map and the zoning map. Can we look at that really quick?
Sure. Did
I just
anybody else have that problem?
I have a blank page with an arrow.
I've got it.
Have it? Are you on the amended one?
I'll look again, but mine doesn't.
Sorry, sometimes
take
the
a while.
PDF has been doing weird things.
Okay.
The map that says vicinity map is an aerial photograph, and so you can see the arrow, but there's an actual photo of the area, and it's just pointing to the vacant. So you can see there's Sunset Park Villas, which are 4plexes, 1-story 4plexes of about a similar density to the east, and then you have Tivoli Gardens to the west, which is about 4 units per acre is R3 development, and then to the north you have commercial, and then to the south you have, I believe it's either R1 or R2 single family homes. So you can just get a better idea of what's built around it. And then the next one that's not showing on your is a zoning map, and it shows that you have PRD to the east, general commercial to the north, and R3 to the west. So it's
in the updated one. Thank you, Noah.
Oh, good. So yeah, the as part of the approval, you're also allowed to comment on the architecture, and that you're approving a theme and kind of a preliminary concept plan. The next step, should it be approved, they would still be required to do a site plan. So but that would be
would be reviewed at the planning commission level, but there would be more detail put into the plans as far as grading and infrastructure and things like that. The plan in the packet, I think the fire department had a comment that they needed to add a turnaround, but that is something that would be an outstanding item that they would need to make sure they address in the site plan. Should it be considered? Right now, you'd be improving the general layout with the amenities and the number of units per acre and the architecture theme. It means that the developer would be committed to building something very, very similar to what's in the packet right now. So that's one of the benefits of having this the new process with the PRD is you get a better idea of what you're going to be getting when you approve the rezone, where before sometimes it was just the use and you weren't sure exactly what project or what developer was going to be coming in. So we would enter a development agreement to require that all of these things are conformed to.
Lisa, do you feel like stepping out?
Yeah, as long as I don't have to make any motions, I should be. Well, this is going to take some conversation, I'm sure. What I've done is kind of fit the with our map that shows kind of the aerial view. We've got the patio homes next to it, and I've fit what would approximate those 20 residents in about the same amount of land. And we exceed they would be able to fit 20 in, and we fit, in this zone, the proposal is 28. So we're talking about an increase of 8 with some amenities. I have a great concern with the concept of connecting this property with the one next to the liquor store, east of the liquor store, that I know is considered, they want to consider the two together with the amenities package. I don't think that those connect in any way. So I don't think we can consider that those benefit each other, because you're talking about quite a span of space before you can actually consider reaching the other property. But in looking, if we're able to have two accesses, 1000 West, I travel that daily. It is busy, especially at certain times of day, but we can't gauge everything just on specific times of day. We have to gauge as an overall, what are we looking at? How busy is this road on average? People don't leave their house all at once and come home all at once. You can tell that by going through anybody's subdivision. You can see that people come and go whenever they need to. They don't tend to have great mass exodus or entrance. So these are just some of the thoughts that I have. I don't consider 8 units more than what is on the adjacent property as anything prohibitive, but I do consider 1000 West as a detrimental area for traffic flow. It could be congested. I'm looking about, 56 cars we'd be adding onto that street, so that's not prohibitive necessarily if we're talking about how many we're looking at. Anyway, those are just some of my thoughts. Let's converse.
Mr. Mayor, could I chime in? Sorry. I failed to mention in the staff report that this would be a standalone project. This would not be connected with the apartments. I know that was mentioned in one of the comments there. They would have to meet, whether or not they decide to share, that's up to them, but they would have to meet the open space requirements of the zone on its own independently.
Which is 20%, right?
I believe so. And so they have a tot lot and 3 pickleball courts on site. And then the developer I failed to mention that the developer is in attendance in the audience, and I'm sure he is more qualified to answer the specific details of the plan than I would. If you want to call on him, he's available.
Let's go down the council first and see where you all are.
Me?
Yes,
okay.
Seth?
So I guess I'm confused. Are we looking at the specific?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
you're potentially rezoning and.
Yeah. So in that case, we had a conversation. I was over at the fire station yesterday for the christening of the new fire truck, and I don't see how, based on the IFC manual, that this current layout would work. It does pose a safety issue, and I don't think that the fire marshal would grant this approval based on the proximity to each other on a collector road. It's not a safe proposal. So for that purpose, I mean, and the other thoughts are I do think that whether these are standalone projects, but I would even go as far as to say that we should recommend these do not share amenities and allow for cross traffic through the parking lots, because who's using the swimming pools, who's using, it's kids, and why do we want to bring more foot traffic through an area like that that's already highly congested? So.
All right. Corinne?
I would like to have those addressed with the fire marshal, but I have to say I really like the elevations. It's very pleasing. It's good colors, more your farmhouse style plus brick, and that's really nice. I like that part. I do have a question about what are the properties on the east side proposed to look like, where they have the garages facing towards the street, and where are their front entrances? And that didn't seem to be included in the packet, so I'd like to see that part. Do they have like their front doors on the backyard?
Do you want to address that?
Is there a way to bring up those elevations on the...
We're gonna try to put it up here.
Okay.
One second.
When we originally proposed these elevations, everything was actually rear loaded. And so our anticipation was that you would come into the project, all the garages would be loaded from the interior of the project, and then everybody's front doors would either be out on 1000 or back into what we'll call the backyard, going over toward the villas. There was a concern that you didn't want the front yards facing that direction, so that there was less attention going back into the villas neighborhood than more, and it would be separate. And so what we will do instead, the elevations that you've got now will be the buildings that are along 1000 West. The other buildings to the east of the driveways there will actually be reversed. So you'll have a front door and a garage on the same face. The back side of it will simply just be similar elements, but a conventional back door. One thing I will say, we looked at this, at the version that you're seeing here. There is a porch over the garages, and we are not going to be doing that. That's, as we looked into it, it's just a maintenance nightmare to have a walkable surface over an enclosed area for leaks, for damage, for things getting tossed off, kids running around. So that, I want to say for the record, that will not be part of the plan. It will be more of a conventional back side of the home, matching what the front side will look like as well.
Could you address the fire standard? What you're
the fire? That's actually kind of surprising, Seth, because we sat down with Golden and walked through this whole thing, and he said, "Yeah, we can actually make that work with a few little tweaks and adjustments." And I can't remember the feature that he said we had to put at either end.
Hammerhead.
I don't know what it was. I don't remember what it was.
We looked at it yesterday with him. You would be required to put a hammerhead turnaround, which is kind of like a T turnaround, so that the fire engine can make a 3-point turn, which is not desirable because it takes a lot more time. And according to our own city code, we actually have to have firemen get out and help them back up and make sure the engine is clear. So it is costly for time. We don't recommend them. We've been advised to not approve them, but that's what would be required on both ends.
And per Golden, he was the one that suggested that is what we would go with.
We need to have the fire chief explain.
If you can speak to that.
So the International Fire Code says anything that's greater than 150 feet, and that's what has been adopted by the city, and that's what we follow. And I believe talking with the fire marshal, it's on that south side that was greater than 150 feet that will require a fire department turnaround. And that's That's the minimum standard, and that's what we have adopted and followed.
Okay.
So
when you say a turnaround, a hammerhead, then provides adequately for the turnaround?
International Fire Code, yes.
Okay.
So, and a lot of that was just preliminary, because this is all preliminary.
Yeah.
Once there's an actual.
This was a verbal conversation. There were no approvals. It wasn't anything in writing, et cetera. So
Yes.
it was just sitting down, looking at the design, saying, what do we need to accommodate here? Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
Where were we? How far did we get to?
I think going that way and
We're going and coming back.
Okay, so I'm concerned for the or did you go?
Let's go down to Corinne,
I had
back up
asked
through you.
questions about the backyards, which he answered.
Okay.
And then, I mean, that was,
If you look at this as really a theme, and Lisa, as long as you approve the theme, then we're okay here. But color schemes, materials, architectural elements, et cetera, that we have to have multiple different buildings, and so they will all be slightly different to comply with the architectural standards. But it's the theme that the whole project will follow.
okay. That's all I have.
All right.
I am concerned about the safety. We know that you will have to lose units on one end for sure, and maybe both, according to the conversation that we had with the fire marshal. I'm not making that call right here, but I just know that's an issue, because he told me it's an issue. He told Seth it's an issue. But one thing that I want to point out is that he also told us that there are 6 options for how you can address that fire code, and only one is preferable, and that wouldn't work here. That is the cul-de-sac turnaround. He said for real safety, he says it's not the technicality of what we have to approve is any of those 6 options, but the time that is given to a fire truck to turn around, only the cul-de-sac is preferable. And you can't do that, so I'm not directing you to do that, but the time that it takes, as he was telling us, the response time for fire, because we live in a different world. Homes used to be built to withstand fire. Now we build tinder boxes that, I think the numbers that he was quoting us was it used to be that if the firemen arrived within 15 minutes, the structure could be saved. And there was some seconds involved, but I can't quote that. But he said now it's down to like 4 minutes, because all of our carpet, our furniture, are all oil-based and glues that are incendiary. And so I have to be concerned about safety, and I have since the get-go. I just wish there was a secondary access on a different road. And that's not about your plan, that's about every plan. I wish that there was a safer way to build a city. And that safer way is that somewhere else you can exit in case of an emergency. So I'm against it. I just don't see how we accommodate it.
And just to address that point, I had a conversation with Scott Verheeren at the Boyer Company. He's the project manager for Smith's, or for the Boyer project with Smith's in it, and asked him what would the possibility be to gain access through the backside of their property. And he said, Nate, I won't ever say absolutely not, but pretty close. There are a lot of factors that play into approval of that access, including Kroger International having to review the site plan, amend the site development CC&Rs, et cetera. Not to mention that we have to go across their drainage ditch over there. And so regardless of what the use is, that access, there will be no other access to that. And so I guess if the access question is the main conversation, then really the property is undevelopable regardless of the use that you're proposing on the site. So if you look at it from that perspective, this use is probably one of the lowest demands on traffic circulation. If you go to a commercial use, you're anywhere from 4 to 10 times the amount of cars in and out and circulating around this that you would with this type of a project. So if if the use is being harmed by the access, it's kind of counterintuitive to push away from that to push further to a commercial use, which is going to exacerbate that concern.
With respect to that, I understand that some commercial uses, that's true. But there are other commercial or industrial uses where it's not true. We have places in the city where they are low impact for traffic, and they're more of a warehouse type, and they only have trucks that come in occasionally during the day, if at all. And what we're being asked is this one a good fit? I'm not saying that we would get, if you were to say, okay, I want a high traffic business, that obviously would be worse. But there are options, and we're not being asked to approve those options because they're not in front of us. But I would hesitate to say that a property is undevelopable.
Quick question, Mayor, if I may. It was just the ending at the south end of the property that was exceeding the 150 feet, correct?
Correct.
Right. So is there a possibility of that entrance being moved down? Obviously, there's some open space. So those are set entrances? I mean, that's a question for the developer, I guess.
There are options. I mean, he could move them to the far ends. And
that's what I'm saying.
I can speak to that too. In the staff review, we asked him to line that driveway up with Tivoli Drive.
Oh, so it's not.
So you want things to be at a right intersection. So that southernmost entry lines directly across the street. On the plan, it says, what is that, 1900 South or something?
Yeah.
So could the units be moved more to the north and then leave open space down to the bottom so that the road isn't as long? That's the question.
Probably.
Yeah.
Paul?
Thank you.
Paul, can I ask you for some counsel? Can these issues all be addressed at the site plan? I mean, to me, it seems like we've got the chicken and the egg thing here that, if there are options for fire access that we've talking about, then there are, there may be a preferred, but if the uniform code chief gives other options, I think we probably ought to send them back to the drawing board with the site plan and bring that plan back to the planning commission and have those things resolved.
So I think if we look at the step we are in the development process, the general plan map is already allowing, this anticipated as one of the uses that could work here. We're at the zoning map approval. With the PRD, things like the circulation plan, the architectural elevations, the landscaping plan, those are things that are tied to the zoning approval. So it's similar to the RPC zone. There are some things that, when this comes back through, this will need to go through a site plan approval because this won't be a subdivision. When that goes through there, then you'll be looking at the code, and it needs to comply with code, but that's going to be administrative, and that would go to the planning commission, and they'd be the land use authority on site plan approvals. Unless I'm mistaken, I don't think this is no subdivision. It's a
single lot.
Okay, single lots. They would have a site plan. Some of these details would be worked out administratively through that administrative process. If there are some parts of the plan that need to be tweaked, then now would be a good time to do that. The code also calls for a development agreement at a certain point, and sometimes you can work out finer points like these that are important to the parties in the development agreement, spell it out so that it's very clear. So we've got quite a few options.
Okay.
So to these higher densities, we are accepting a development agreement at this time, so we have to kind of, if they're important.
We're accepting the proposal of a development agreement. There is no development agreement before us. What we're looking at here is land use. And it is part of, it is...
Clarify or clarity, please.
So the code says the applicant must execute a development agreement in connection to the zoning map amendment. So that means that either you would have the agreement before you when you do the zoning map amendment, or you would do the map amendment and say these are the things that we want in the development agreement that you could drop after the fact. We could do it either way, where you have sort of a conditional approval, saying these are things we need in the development agreement, or you can wait until the agreement's drafted.
Give us a solution. Give us a couple of options, can you?
So those are the two options. You get several options. So one is deny. Second would be approve contingent on the development agreement, there would be table and get a development agreement before the body.
And Paul, just if I can ask a question, contingent upon the development agreement being approved, can you have specific items, i.e. the approved access or turnaround with the fire department as a contingency that will be addressed in the development agreement?
Yes. Yeah, anything that's important to you, you can say that needs to be covered in the development agreement. If we get to a point where the developer and the city can't work out the differences, then we can always come back to the council and address the overall issue.
Okay. Somebody want to give us a direction?
I still haven't gone yet.
Okay, Jordan.
Man. Because I do want to talk to, because we had a lot of people with comments. We've got, just so you know, comments, petitions, all of those are extremely valuable to, I believe. I don't know who you spoke to, but it's extremely valuable to each of us, that, at least in my experience. So thank you for being passionate about this. I do want to address a lot of the items that have been discussed, both during public comment and amongst some of my peers. So let's talk about the location. So this is a busy road. I agree. It's often backed up to Smith's. I believe UDOT has retimed a light recently. As far as I can tell, I know that it seems to be better than it used to be. It used to be you couldn't make a left turn without, I'd only let like 2 cars through. And now I've seen that seems to be adjusted. But as far as location, first of all, the appropriateness of it in that area. So I went through and looked at all the adjacent zones as was brought up. So this is a PRD adjacent to a PRD. Across the street is an R3, which is basically the next step down. And I think as far as location, I think the density fits. It's a PRD adjacent to a PRD, and that makes sense to me. The next thing was safety. Primarily, it looks like a lot of people are talking about traffic. As far as traffic goes, if we were to put some type of commercial here, yes, there are some commercial businesses that have less traffic. There are also some commercial businesses that have a whole lot more. And we don't get to pick and choose which commercial businesses move into our buildings. I don't think we can make this decision based on, well, there are some commercial that has less traffic, because that's not a decision we get to make. So I can't go either way, but in general, commercial will have more traffic. So if we're using traffic as a reason to determine what goes here, I think commercial is actually a residential development is actually a good use of this zone to reduce the traffic impact on the area, simply because at max, I think the parking per home is, remind me, is it 2? Is it 2 per?
We're 2 per.
So basically the worst case as far as traffic goes is, in between 50 and 60 cars, whereas a commercial will probably be somewhere double that, depending on what it is. So if we're using traffic as a reason to determine what goes here, I am in favor of residential. Again, we're adjacent to items of similar safety, and anything that went here, I had someone bring up the fact that if there was a fire on this, they would have to shut down 1,000. Now the issue is, with commercial, that doesn't go away. If there is a fire at a commercial location, we still have to shut down the road, because a fire is a fire and has to be dealt with, and the road is what it is, and so we have to deal with all the I don't think a residential fire is extremely different from a commercial fire. Now, I could be totally off base on that, but I think the basic approach to fighting fire is the same regardless. Now, one thing that does concern me is the fact that we've brought up the current site plan is not adequate. Again, I would need to hear Golden speak to that. I don't have anything in front of me other than the word of a few council members. But I would like to see that addressed. At this time, until that's addressed, I can't approve this specific site plan.
And from what I understand, Paul, that can be addressed as a condition to the approval.
It could be if the council wants to, yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Let's pull it.
I also would like to see, so I actually really liked the balconies. The fact that those are gone saddens me. I think balconies are a great perk. I really like the look of those. I think they add a level of class to the building.
Could they be possibly added as overhang rather than being on top of it?
I don't think we're to that point yet. I'm just telling you that the balcony is a minus for me, that those are gone.
Yeah, and it would, I'm speaking more to the balcony over the top of a garage.
Right.
Is just a hideously bad idea. I
I
don't know how that
understand
ever
that.
got in there. So,
It would have to be a poured concrete, and my father-in-law poured concrete and has a room underneath his garage, and
Yeah.
it leaks. And so I get that. I would just encourage you to really look at a way to keep those, just because I think they're awesome.
okay.
For no other reason than that. I would like to see what the rear looks like.
Yeah.
No, it's not. That is not. I mean the rear buildings.
The east side.
The east buildings, those are not included. I'm just saying they'll kind of look like the other ones. I need more than that, just simply because.
And maybe I misunderstood the language. I thought in the language that we had to provide a theme for the architecture. So if we need to, was the intent to design the elevations of all buildings, Noah? And maybe I just didn't understand that one correctly.
I don't think we need the whole idea.
I could read you the ordinance. It says architectural theme plan.
Okay.
So.
So the theme plan, I guess, is just kind of like this right now. Usually when I've seen architectural theme plans, it actually goes through colors, materials, and stuff like that. This gives me an idea, but I don't know what type of surfaces these are. I don't know if they're hardy board or if they're stucco. I guess usually I see a little bit more in a theme.
And I believe that was on the plan as well. There was one plan that broke out all of the materials, and maybe that didn't.
Can I just
I don't
say
see
that if I understood Paul correctly, we can choose to require that or not. I mean, how deep that goes, is that right? With how deep the development agreement goes?
Yeah, and I could also read here, the development agreement shall include a building theme showing detail in the unification of exterior architectural style, building materials, and color and size of each unit.
So this is a legislative decision, so really, if there's something that's really important to the council, then we can address it in the development agreement. And so, at the same time, recognize that asking a developer to
Design it up front.
design it, there's a lot of expense
I'm not
up
asking
front.
for that.
Yes, that's the other. On the other hand, you don't want to ask too much of them up front when they don't have any guarantee of return. So
Right. I'm okay with that. I just wanted to understand the materials involved.
Sure.
I think it's stucco, but
It's a mix of brick, stucco, hardy board, and I think we actually on this one had cementatious panels as well, which is just imagine flat hardy board that is just a different textured feature.
Sure.
But it's a resilient product.
Okay.
I like that better than the.
Somebody
I
move
have
us
one
off.
more.
Okay, go ahead.
Not done yet.
Go ahead.
The last thing.
I'm going to let you speak, but I want Dennis swing
Okay.
at the ball.
The last thing is with the Smith's access, I believe that would be a liability, and I would encourage you not to pursue that simply because I think what you would have is people that feel like traffic is backed up would start driving through this area and actually creating more of a traffic issue within this development.
Having managed that Smith's, I've told many, many, many people no for that reason. You want to contain your own traffic.
Agree. All right, now I'm done.
Okay, move us off of center.
Move us off of center.
Mm-hmm. Where do we go?
So I am debating whether or not there is enough of a squish here that I think my initial thought is to move towards a table until we get some of this resolved. But at the same time, he doesn't have to have it all resolved now. I would actually defer to the others. If someone feels strongly about this one way or the other, I'd encourage you to.
Anybody feel strongly to move us?
I mean, I would recommend that we table it just to get the fire concern laid out ahead of the development agreement. That's where I would, and then I agree with almost everything you said, Jordan.
Okay, then I will second that.
That sounds
Do
good.
I have a motion and a second?
You have a motion to.
Oh, what were you motioning to table?
Motion to table.
I motion to table it until we get that
All right.
fire concern.
So really, if we can look at the fire, but then add some additional detail to the elevations to give you a better idea of that.
Yeah, I'm not asking you to design it. I'm just asking you to, first of all, add the detail that tells me what this is and what the real theme is, other than
Sure.
it looks kind of like this.
Okay, we'll give some additional detail on that.
I am assuming that I have a motion, a second from Jordan.
Yes.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? The motion is to table, send this back for the additional clarification of the fire safety issues and maybe some work on elevation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Cassie, that appears to be unanimous. Thank you, Nate.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Brody, item 15.
Okay, we've discussed this on a number of occasions. This is an ordinance that allows a fee in lieu of water share dedication. The ordinance has not changed since our last discussion at the work session, so I assume you've read the cover memo. I won't go into it unless you have any questions.
All right. Corinne, would you want to lead us?
Sure. We see this every year, and it looks really good. And, well, sorry, excuse me, not this one. Not this one. I'm getting this confused with the last report. My bad. Actually, we've discussed this quite a bit, though, on this one. And I think that we have gone to the best place that we can as a city in making sure that we have enough water rights and or the monies to pay for them as they become available, especially as our city develops. And I think this is a very good plan. So thank you.
David?
I wish there was a way to avoid this. I mean,
Yes,
honestly, I
that's
just wish we could say that we require standard water shares, because we do know that over time these are more expensive to the city and will cost everyone more. So I wish we had an alternative. It seems like we have to do something, but I would love to put this one off until we absolutely had to accept some alternate plan. Are we there?
Are we there, Brody?
Are we there? That's the question.
We do have some developers that are in that.
Yeah, so, we're aware of at least 3 developments that have been approved that do require this in order to develop.
Because this
so when you say when we absolutely have to, are we talking about are we waiting for a court to mandate it? Are we waiting for a judge to mandate it? Like, what do you mean by?
Well, because in theory, I just want to be clear to all the citizens listening and out there. The city has a standard that a standard water share has to be provided at a certain rate per acre when you add to the city. That way, we are not dividing the city's resources among more people. You actually have to bring more resources in with your development. So that standard means that we don't have to necessarily change the cost or the cost of water doesn't change because we allowed new development. If we allow these class 3 shares to come into the city and be acceptable, there is a timetable. They pay up front for a few years of the added cost, but eventually that expires. So I would wish that we didn't have to put that on our other citizens, because they've done the right thing. They built here and added the water shares to the city. These new people are building and adding water shares that will come with a higher rate later. And that is not just for those people, it's shared. So I wish that as long as we could put this off, I would like to, because we would like just the standard class water shares that don't ever change they change in cost, but they don't, the paid up front doesn't expire. You just bring us a share, it's good for the same amount of water.
So I guess that, I mean, Robert's been out trying to get water shares for the city.
I know,
and he could let us know how difficult it is to find shares if you don't happen to have it attached to land. Yeah, absolutely.
It's not that, but I want to clarify. He said they're scarce, and they're not scarce. The people aren't selling them. That's the problem.
Right. Yeah, and that is the problem. And I think we're at that point where there's enough, from our experience, from what we're hearing from the development community, that we're at that point. What we've tried to do is to be, we're not just opening the floodgates, so to speak, wide. We're only allowing up to a certain percentage to be bought out. We're really trying to make this a measured response that meets our constitutional obligations, but also protects our citizens. I think this is best of a bad option.
I'm agreeing with you. This is probably the best we can do under the legal circumstance, but I hate it because the old way of doing this is that you bring in water shares and we get water shares and then we provide for the city, and that was fair and equal. This one's not. It's just a different rate.
I just think it's a different time too, and a different environment that we have, and you said something along the lines of they did it the right way, and I think, well, our developers now aren't doing it the wrong way. They're doing it the only way they have the ability to do it, and so it is up to us to be a partner in this, as well as protect our citizens. I don't think that there should be a suggestion of a developer doing something the wrong way when they're placed in that circumstance because of where we are in the ability to get the water shares. We know that they would provide them if people were selling them. So I think that we need to be a good partner in this, and I think that it's our best option.
I know when I was first on the council, I actually had another council member give a whole discussion on a book called Who Moved My Cheese? And I hate to say it, but in this circumstance, the cheese is moved. Yep. And we have to mitigate that circumstance as best we can. And I agree this is not the most desired path forward, but at the same time, it is a path forward available to us that allows us to continue to work with developers that want to do business in here, and if this is not corrected, would be unable to. And so I see this as a path forward to help us to continue to be able to work with those that would like to help develop Syracuse. So I am in favor of this.
Seth?
Yeah, with I think 3+ projects on the books, or at least somewhat on the future calendar, I think that puts us at that moment where we have to make a decision, and I think this is reasonable and thought out. And I agree, it's not desirable by any stretch, but there's a lot of things we do that aren't desirable.
Let me be a little more clear on this. My objection is when people say by allowing more development, you're making my taxes go up. This is one of those times when that's somewhat true. It's not entirely true because it's not immediate, but it does force everyone to pay more down the road. And that's my objection. I wish that we could say, because, so far to this point, we've always been able to say to people, no, you don't get less water because someone else built. They brought more water. You don't pay more because they brought the same water shares that you brought. So we're all still equal in this. This now forces us off that. Not too much, but it opens that door to where people say, okay, now development is impacting me. And I just wish we could avoid that, because I did like the idea that everyone was coming here on the same standard.
Well, and I understand that. And at the same time, we'd be saying your taxes will increase if we don't develop, because our infrastructure tends to crumble over time, and then we end up having to pay for things that we can't if we don't have the development that supports it. So, and also when we're talking about smaller lots, we have a little bit less water required to take care of those lawns and than we used to. So yeah, the cheese has moved and the cheese has a smaller lot size, but it comes with more expensive water, I think, and harder to get water.
Somebody give me a motion.
No, I'm not going to move anything.
Oh, come on, Lisa.
I learned.
I'll take it.
Thanks.
No, look, we have to do something to allow this, so I understand we have to approve this. So I'll make the motion, even though I'm the one that keeps saying, I wish we didn't have to do this. I do wish we didn't have to do this, but it is inevitable, so I'll make the motion that we accept the plan to allow fee in lieu of for share dedication.
I have
Second.
I have a second and a first and a second. Any further discussion, council? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Cassie, would you record that as unanimous? We're at item number 16, public comment. I'd reopen it to public comment if there's something that you'd like to discuss that we've triggered your interest. State your name and place of residence.
Thank you. Jim King. I live at 864 West in the Villas. I did have 80 signed residential signatures on a petition, and I grabbed the wrong folder, so I'll bring it next time we meet, 2 weeks. I'll be addressing the mixed-use development zone to be covered in your upcoming City Council work session. So on January 28, the City Council concluded that the existing mixing use was not getting results desired. So 2 applications have been tabled while a new and better use mix is identified. So over a month of discussions, and in the 1-hour work meeting you got all kinds of red letters and all kinds of black letters. Just 2 concerns I have, one being the tiered height ratio to be discussed. It now shows if it's a 2-story, 30 feet, it requires 2,400 square feet of commercial per 100 units. If it's a 3-story, 40 feet, that's 3,600 square feet per 100 units. I'm concerned with the Briggs property that the density there proposed at 116 unit. The paperwork actually calls it an apartment concept plan. I'm opposed to that plan, but that plan called for 4,000 square feet of commercial space for 69,000 building area, or roughly 6%. Using the calculations on your new height ratio, even going to 3-story, 40 feet, that would require 4,176 square feet of commercial development for the 69,000 square feet building, so basically the same 6%. So I don't see that we're getting any more commercial than was required in the existing mixed-use development zone. My second concern too is the parking option down at the bottom. Now allows a developer to satisfy the commercial component aspect of mixed use to be satisfied by joining with some other developer providing a new commercial business within 1/4 of the apartment complex. Why have this requirement placed upon a mixed-use developer? If they're not bringing any commercial development to the transaction themselves, then have them apply and build an apartment complex. As a City Council, I encourage you to make sound land use decisions, not based on the immediate financial rewards for the city, developer, and the landowner alone, but properly consider the safety, convenience, order, security, and the general welfare of the citizens of Syracuse City. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Anyone else? Rachel?
Me again. Sorry, I just wanted to address this since I won't be able to before the work session. I did want to clarify on those petitions, 5 names that had signed on paper also signed the printout part. So, but then I've also got 8 additional names on the printout part since I printed it. So just wanted to clarify that. And some of those signatures also include the owners of Latrano CrossFit. So business owners are also expressing their opposition. A couple things with the mixed use. I was at the last meeting and was there when the ex-mayor of Ogden, Mayor Godfrey, spoke. So then it got me thinking, why are we trying to rush this mixed use zoning and cram stuff in along Antelope where it's prime real estate for great commercial areas when we've apparently paid, I'm assuming, thousands of dollars to this firm to come into our city, evaluate it, and give us direction of how to elevate our city, what we could bring in, implement a plan. Why would we fill those spaces before we've even done that study and seen the results? Because maybe he would come back with some results that would fit the area better. So I just thought, seems like we're jumping the gun when we're paying for this service. Wait to see what the service results are. And then I did see some specific concerns when I was looking at the mixed use portion on the agenda, the edits, and my phone was dying, so I'm sorry I couldn't get them specifically. But I did notice it specified single dwelling or single family detached dwellings when it's discussing like how far away things are, and that wouldn't take into account like the patio homes of the villas. So I just wanted to maybe give you a heads up to take that into account as well, maybe lower level homes versus just single family dwellings. And also, I was concerned with the ratio of commercial square footage versus stories, because those numbers are just as small as what was proposed, which you seem to already have a problem with when it was initially, when you guys started initially discussing it. I also noticed something that mentioned 4 stories, which caught my eye, and I was shocked that we were considering 3 stories in Syracuse, that much, but I was under the impression that Syracuse Fire Services couldn't do anything above 3 stories. They couldn't accommodate that, so I'm not sure, but I thought I'd heard that. And I just am afraid of the impression that giant 3-story apartments will make as you drive down Antelope in Syracuse. Driving past some in Clearfield as I went to the Front Runner station, they just loom over the street, and I'm afraid that's the first impression that people will see when they come to Syracuse. And so, just to wrap up, maybe if it's too confusing, this mixed use is kind of all meddled and muddled, and maybe just keep commercial and residential separate for now. And I'm concerned with the 2 separate, build commercial here and we reward you with higher density here. I'm just concerned that that could cause problems. So at that point, why not just here's a commercial zone and just keep the zoning separate? So just some thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you, Rachel. Anyone else like to address the council? Hearing and seeing none, I'll close public comment. The council, let's talk about announcements. Seth, can we start down there on the end with you?
Sure.
Do you have anything for the council?
Yeah, so I went to the fire truck christening yesterday. I thought that was such a great experience. It was really cool to see the history that was attached to that, and we got to push an entire fire engine back up into the bays, and that was kind of a fun team effort. We all got to shoot the fire hoses at it and wash it. It looked pretty clean beforehand, though, I'll be honest, and then manually dry it. But it was really cool, and I'm proud of the efforts that the fire department have made to keep our city safe. So that was really a cool experience. Also, I got to go to the Cook Elementary Community Council today and kind of introduce myself to them and get acquainted with them. And they seem like an amazing group. And I'm really excited to continue working with them and to recognize some of the great things that they talked about that their students are participating in, including national championships for dance and reflections contest. What's that? Yeah, that's what I'm hoping to see. So I'm excited to work with them.
Thank you, Seth. Lisa?
So this was the last meeting for the Utah League of Cities and Towns legislative session. That ends this week, so got to go and it's been great to be a part of that. Every week we go to the Capitol and get some information about bills that greatly impact our cities, and so we kind of have a lobbying and research group that helps with that, and we're part of it, and it helps our voice be heard. So that's been, that finishes up this week. Been fortunate enough to go to the Citizens Police Academy. Several of the council are doing that this spring, and my goodness, if you ever want to appreciate our first responders and weep through half of the stuff, then you should take an opportunity to go and find out more about what our police actually are up against. that is fantastic. We're a couple weeks into a 15-week session. We're with the communities that care. I serve as the new chair of the Youth Involvement Committee, so we are looking for we're doing a logo contest for our Syracuse and Clearfield High. See if there, and anybody that's a Syracuse resident who wants to, well, and actually Clearfield as well, because we're connecting with surrounding cities. Any youth who want to design our logo, we're having a contest, so if you know anybody who's interested, let me know. And then again, the fire truck christening was really great, and what we figured out, it cost over $700,000, but most expensive insurance plan you'll ever have. I believe that's what I've heard, and I believe it, so that's just what's been going on.
Thank you, Lisa.
All right. Again, we have the CERT class ongoing. Great opportunity. If you didn't get on this class, I'd encourage you to look at the next one. We are going to be doing first aid this week, so for anyone listening who is a former CERT graduate, we'd encourage you to come on back. You're welcome at any one of our classes as a refresher. So if you want to brush up on your first aid skills, feel free to drop by tomorrow night from 6:30 to 9:30. So that is always a great opportunity. I apologize for missing the christening. Is that what we're calling it?
I don't know if that was appropriate.
the initiatory ceremony of the fire truck. I was caught up at work. I was extremely distraught. I pulled into Syracuse due to traffic at about like 6:20, and I assumed it was pretty much over. So.
And wept.
What's that?
And wept.
I did. I just pulled over and I bathed my own car in my tears. Anyway, but a big shout out. I don't want that to come across. I am a huge supporter of the fire station. Thank you guys so much for all you do. We would be in trouble without you, so thank you. And I also went to Syracuse Community Council today at Syracuse Elementary. For all the parents with students at Syracuse Elementary, watch your email. They will be doing a evacuation simulation, and if you go to pick up your kids on the date they've identified at the school, they will not be there. So they will be evacuating to a nearby building that is already selected. So just watch your emails, pay attention, and that way you won't be wondering where your kid is on that date. And that is all I have.
Thank you, Jordan. Dave?
I will start by reporting that there is a ton going on with the Arts Council. I've already mentioned that. Be aware that there will be auditions for the summer musical coming up in April. Those dates are posted in the magazine and on the website. The choir is always looking for more members. The jazz band and choir each have a concert this month, both in these chambers. The sewer board, we actually meet this week, but just a couple of things to note. In our last meeting, there were approvals for a very large package of pipelinings that will extend the life of the system. Those will go on throughout the city, and I will try to keep you up to date with road closures. Some of them will affect our city, some of them will affect neighboring cities, but access to our city. Please be patient when you see those big lines going down the road, because it is saving us so much taxpayer dollars to be able to line those pipes and not have to dig up the road and replace them. And we did just go over the cost of that, and it's the costs of cities who didn't choose to do that, or districts that didn't choose to do that, are really paying the price. So we've done a good thing there. I want to thank the fire department for letting me be a part of that yesterday. I absolutely love you guys and what you do. But I have to say that of all the part of the experience, what I loved most was seeing the pride in those firefighters. You have such a strong change in the attitude of that department since you've been there, Aaron. And what a great group you've got, and great spirit amongst your team. Very proud of that group. I'm also a part of the Citizens Police Academy, and I'm enjoying it thoroughly.
Are you guys going to get tased?
At
I'm
this point,
committed.
I want you to commit now.
Dave said he would.
I absolutely have strong feelings for those of you who serve in all those capacities, and I appreciate you.
Okay.
Corinne?
My apologies to the fire department, but I didn't want to give you corona. Just kidding. So, speaking of corona, though, the Portland Mosquito Abatement Conference was canceled because of fears of that virus being spread from national travel. But we do have our mosquito abatement conference, meeting this coming Thursday. So I'll be sending you a report on that. We are struggling to get seasonal employees there, very much so. In fact, we only have 3 people returning. So if you want your mosquitoes dead, encourage every 18-year-old that you know to come and apply, please. They're hiring starting at 10:50 and moving to 11. As soon as they pass their chemicals test, they get paid to study. So
You have to be 18, though.
you have to be 18 with
18-year-old.
call them and find out. You have to have a valid driver's license as well. Let's see. And there is even consideration to possibly increase that wage because we can't get people to apply. I want to send a thank you to Paul and Brody for your reports from ULCT over the last several weeks. With everybody reporting, we kind of fill in the blanks for everyone, so thank you so much, especially on the meeting that we didn't even know happened. It was on a Tuesday because of the holiday, so thank you. Also, I have notes everywhere. CTC, I'm very excited about the illumination event, and I'm trying to get Job Corps involved as well there because we need a bunch of volunteers. And just a quick update. We had my first pre-test last week for belt test. I got some work to do, but I did 140 push-ups, jumping jacks, and sit-ups. And then 2 miles in 27 minutes after that. It was terrible. I've got some work, so just had to say. That was before we did an hour of punches and kicks, so I'm getting there.
Thank you, Corinne.
So I had one thing that I wanted to add that was a grievous oversight on my part in recognizing all of the robotics kids. I failed to recognize Mrs. Jessica Constant, who is the advisor. She is one who has put in countless hours to those kids, and she is also in charge of doing, she actually organizes a lot of the competitions, and not just her, but to all of the teachers, but her, since she was here, thank you for all of the time you put in on behalf of our children. My daughter, as I said, is on that team, and she just thinks the world of Mrs. Constant. And again, thank you to the teachers that put their time in on behalf of our students. It is a thankless job oftentimes, and I hope that I can at least be one to give them big thanks in public. I'll have to download this clip and email it to her later, but we have some amazing teachers here in Syracuse.
Thank you, Jordan. I don't have anything. Brody, do you have something?
So the manager's report is finished. I was putting finishing touches on it earlier today and got sidetracked and never made it back. So you'll have something to read tomorrow on it. I'll get it out there to you. Scheduling for budget. We are going through with each department now to put together preliminary budgets. You should start seeing those at the end of the month, a couple weeks before the budget retreat in April, so you'll be able to have plenty of time to look through that.
Just to confirm, it's not this Friday.
April 17th. It's April 17th. Yeah, you can take that off your calendar.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. And then This wasn't February, this was March, but I wanted to let the council know we were the subject of a ransomware attack on the city. And I have to say that all in all, we handled it really well. The Sophos firewall that we put in a couple of years ago really cut off a lot of what it could have done. So we were able to get around it. We weren't held ransom. We didn't have to pay anything. Because we've set up our cloud-based backups, we were able to gather all our backups, and there's still some, loose ends that we have to fix and that sort of thing because of it. But from what it could have been, it could have been a complete disaster. But I want to thank Steve for the time that he's put in over the last week or so, directing our IT and getting us back in line and making improvements to the system. I want to thank Councilmember Mon for your guidance in setting up the security-minded firewall that we currently have, because it did the trick. It saved our bacon. So just wanted to let you know about that. Thanks.
Thank you. Council, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That appears to be unanimous. Cassie, let's reconvene without motion in the